Hey guys, how you going? This is BillyEatWorld again. Thanks for stopping by, and just remember, if you like what you see, don't forget to hit that like button. Also, feel free to take a look at some of my other Battlefield videos if you like. You can find them all in a playlist in the description down below. But anyway, today we're going to be taking a look at tanks in Battlefield 4, which is a topic that I've avoided on purpose for quite a while now. And that's because I almost never use them in this game because they just don't feel that realistic and I don't find them that fun. It's not that I don't like tank gameplay in general. I mean, I love War Thunder, but that's a game focused on tanks. And BF4, on the other hand, is focused mainly on infantry, which means that the tanks and the other vehicles got a lot less developer attention. So why is this topic relevant now? Well, as you know, BF5 is coming out at the end of this year and we already know that it's going to be a military theme. And considering they even managed to find a way to put armoured vehicles into Hardline, I'm pretty sure they're going to be in Battlefield 5 as well. So I think this is a good opportunity for the devs to rethink tanks, because although I realise some people probably like them, they do need improving. I'm not saying they should rewrite the book on them altogether, but they could stand to be a bit more realistic, which I think would make them a lot more fun to play with. Now, to kick off, the first and most obvious thing I'd like to change about tanks in BF5 is to add in a module system like what's in War Thunder. And what I mean by this is, instead of the game treating the tank like one big object, it would basically be a collection of individual modules representing critical systems. You see, tanks these days have a ridiculous amount of armour, so the way you take them out in real life is to penetrate the weak points. You don't just fire round after round until they explode like you do in BF4, and in a lot of cases this means that you can knock out a tank without necessarily killing the whole crew. Speaking of killing the crew, well, they can also be considered a module as well, because a well-placed hit might kill them without doing too much damage to the tank. For example, in World War II, it wasn't uncommon when a tank crew was killed for the tank to be towed away, cleaned out, and sent back in the next day with a new crew. So I think a module system in BF5 would be a good way of more accurately representing the kind of damage a tank would take in real life. And also, it'd add a bit more skill to tank gunnery, because like in War Thunder, you'd have to know where to aim to knock out a tank's crew or systems. Now, speaking of gunnery, another thing that really bothers me about tanks in BF4 is that in real life, the driver doesn't fire the gun. In fact, in a tank like the M1 Abrams, the driver is the only crew member who doesn't sit in the turret, meaning he literally couldn't reach the firing controls. And Abrams actually has a dedicated gunner who works the main gun, as well as a commander and a loader who work the turret-mounted machine guns. So as you can see, the driver doesn't actually fire any of the tank's weapons, and without the rest of the crew, he's just a sitting duck in a big tin can. Obviously, 4 crew members for one tank in Battlefield is probably a bit over the top, but I think it would be a good idea to at least change the roles around a bit. For example, I'd probably like to see one player taking on the role of the driver and commander, and another player taking on the role of the gunner and the loader. That'd mean that the player driving would only have control over the top-mounted HMG, and the other player would control the main gun and the coax LMG. In other words, lone wolfing in a tank would be a lot harder, which would mean players would actually have to work together like they would in real life. Now finally, the last main thing I'd like to see is the strength of tanks increased, but I'd also like to see them become a rare and precious resource. And by this, I mean they should be super hard to kill, but slower to repair, and they should only spawn once or twice in a round. This is basically how tanks work in Company of Heroes, which obviously is a completely different type of game, but has a similar sector control style. And in this game, the idea works super well, because it means losing a tank is a massive deal, and you have to keep them protected. Obviously, super strong tanks capturing everything wouldn't be very fun, so the way Company of Heroes balances them is by making them unable to capture objectives. And I think this makes a lot of sense because a tank crew can't really operate the tank, as well as secure buildings at the same time. This would mean that to cap points and actually make a difference in the game, tank crews would either have to work with infantry or expose themselves by disembarking. And this would give the enemy team a good opportunity to try and steal the tank, or at least hit it in a weak spot while it's immobilized. But anyway guys, that's just a few of my ideas on this topic, so let me know what you think in the comment section below, and as always, if you like what you see, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Also, check out the links in the description below if you want to see more of my videos, or if you want to support my channel on Patreon. And until next time, see you later, and have a good one.